news. Tonight, the Hazelwood mine fire inquiry begins public hearings. Nielsen Builders' assets to be auctioned off. And investigations continue into the death of a pedestrian at Tangel. Good evening, I'm Bruce Roberts. Also tonight, schoolies urged to switch partying for volunteering. Victoria's Fire Services Commissioner Craig Lapsley has fronted the opening day of public hearings for the inquiry into the worst coal mine fire in Victoria's history. The Hazelwood mine fire burnt for 45 days, shrouding Morwell in smoke and ash.
Today marked a milestone in the Hazelwood mine fire inquiry.
Welcome to a very special day, the first day of public hearings.
Counsel assisting the Board of Inquiry, Melinda said while the abundant supply of brown coal is key to Victoria's prosperity, it's left Morwell anything but.
For reasons that are not known, there was no provision for a buffer zone between the mine and the town. The
inquiry heard the Latrobe Valley is notorious for bushfires, and fires in open-cut mines are unavoidable.
There are approximately 100 small fires at the Hazelwood mine each year, usually in the working part of the mine. Measures are in place so that these fires can be put out quickly and do not spread.
But today, Victoria's Fire Services Commissioner told the inquiry there were parts of the mine that didn't have access to pipework or sprinklers.
There was a need to either lay fire hose or build infrastructure.
Craig Lapsley said resources were stretched on February 9, the worst day since Black Saturday. The Hearns Oak fire had been burning for 2 days and authorities had already involved industry.
To say that this fire, although contained, had potential.
A second blaze, the suspicious Driffield fire, was ignited the afternoon of February 9. Mr Lapsley said it's likely one or both of the fires spotted into the mine. The inquiry heard it took the CFA until 10 p.m. to assume control of the fire.
That does seem like rather a long time in an environment where first response is critical.
While Mr Lapsley defended the decision to drop water on the mine.
Were there any reports to you of the use of aircraft having in fact spread the fire?
No.
The inquiry also heard authorities could have better engaged with the community.
In times of crisis, you need face-to-face and engagement.
3 weeks has been set aside for the hearings, which will involve up to 50 witnesses, from firefighters to mine workers, as well as representatives from the community. Brooke Van Newton, Win News.
Victoria's Fire Services Commissioner was in the hot seat as the inquiry into the Hazelwood coal mine fire opened today. Craig Lapsley admitted authorities had struggled to come to grips with the fire and were continually looking for new strategies. He also acknowledged communication with residents of the nearby town of Morwell could have been handled better. From Morwell, Brianna Whitson reports.
The Hazelwood coal mine fire started on February 9th, leaving Morwell residents to choke on the smoke and ash for 45 days. Fire Services Commissioner Craig Lapsley was in charge of the emergency response. He told the hearing it was immediately apparent that it was the most serious fire in the state and required significant resources.
To the level of concern I had, I sent both the CFA chief and the MFB chief to Morwell to inspect it and report back to me.
Under nearly 3 hours of questioning, he admitted authorities had struggled to extinguish it and were continually seeking new strategies and techniques. He says efforts to contain the fire were complicated by the need to keep Hazelwood Power Station operating and a delay in obtaining compressed air foam units from interstate. Growing anger in the town of Morwell and poor communication with the residents compounded the situation.
We, for the first time, saw a significant outcry of the community over significance that needed to be dealt with and dealt with very quickly. The community's tolerance towards this fire had changed in a matter of days.
Tomorrow, the operator of Hazelwood Mine and Power Station, GDF Sewers, will be called to give evidence. The inquiry today heard that despite requests, GDF Sewers has so far failed to provide complete information in its submissions to the inquiry. Counsel for the company questioned Mr Lapsley about whether it had been properly informed of events on the night the fire broke out. Brianna Whitson, ABC News, Morwell.
The Fire Services Commissioner has been grilled about the response to the Hazelwood mine fire on the first day of public hearings into the disaster. Craig Lapsley conceded that on the day of the blaze, Victoria's aerial firefighting capability was stretched. More from Andrew Lund.
The Morwell auditorium was full as Inquiry Chief Bernard Teague began 3 weeks of public hearings.
We hope to have an open public exposure of many things.
First to take the stand, Fire Services Commissioner Craig Lapsley. He told the hearing that in the face of the worst forecast since Black Saturday, he made a conscious decision not to send an air crane so as not to compromise protection for Melbourne's outer suburbs.
We did our darnest to make sure that the incident controller got what he needed, and by reshuffling the state fleet we were able to do that.
There was no loss of life, but the inquiry heard the blaze was the worst open-cut mine fire in Victorian history, most likely sparked by spotting from 2 nearby bushfires. It took 31 days to bring under control, with many residents complaining they were kept in the dark. But Mr Lapsley defended the communication strategy.
Some would say you got it wrong. I would say we learnt as we went about the information and the types of ways to engage with the Morwell community.
The inquiry's already heard from around 250 people at a series of 10 community consultation sessions, with representatives of the mine operator expected to appear before the hearing later this week. A final report is due to be presented to government by the end of August. Andrew Lund, 9 News.
Victoria's top fire officer has admitted the battle against the Hazelwood mine fire could have been handled much better. He has given evidence on day one of the inquiry into the open-cut blaze that burned for 45 days. Yasmin Payton has more.
Fog rather than toxic smoke blanketed Morwell as Fire Services Commissioner Craig Lapsley arrived to give evidence. Inside, Chairman Justice Bernard Teague opened the inquiry.
Welcome to a very special day. First day of public hearings of the Hazelwood mine fire inquiry.
The packed auditorium heard evidence about Victoria's largest open-cut coal mine fire, which started on February 9, burned for 45 days, choked the region with smoke and ash and forced mass evacuations. Mr Lapsley admitted authorities should have done more.
I mean, you can always look in hindsight. I think you've got to deal with what's on the table at the time.
And he conceded communication with residents was lacking.
The amount of anger that was in that community, we had to do it different.
The town's dead.
The Fire Services Commissioner said he expressed concern about high levels of carbon monoxide and the reliability of testing equipment. The inquiry heard 4 fires at the Hazelwood mine in the past decade had prompted reviews and recommendations. The inquiry this week will focus on the cause of the fire and the response which followed. Next week, health and environmental impacts will be looked at, followed by mitigation and prevention in week 3. And to make matters worse for Morwell residents, police are investigating claims many of the $100 vouchers mailed to them from the mine operator as a gesture of goodwill have been stolen from letterboxes. Yasmin Payton, 10 Eyewitness News.
The Fire Services Commissioner says lessons have been learned from the Hazelwood mine fire that sparked a health crisis in Morwell. Craig Lapsley was the first witness on the first day of a public inquiry into the fire emergency.
The smoke above Morwell has cleared, but an air of uncertainty lingers.
We hope to have an open public exposure of many things.
Morwell was blanketed in toxic smoke for more than a month when an out-of-control fire raged through Hazelwood's open-cut mine in February and March.
The community's tolerance towards this fire had changed in a matter of days.
Craig Lapsley admitted there were inconsistencies in monitoring carbon monoxide levels.
I was concerned that we were overreacting to something that was preliminary information from some detectors.
But he defended the allocation of firefighting resources, saying the problem was the depth of the mine, which often made access dangerous.
We did have a frustrated community that were too much, not enough. And what are you telling me? I'm now confused.
Mine operator GDF Sewers put $100 gift vouchers into residents' letterboxes as a welcome boost to the local economy. Instead, thieves have gone on a spree.
It's pretty disappointing, isn't it, when that happens?
A blow for a town already struggling to get back on track.
The inquiry will run for 3 weeks and focus on 3 main issues: the cause of the fire, the impact on residents' health and the environment, and how we can prevent this from ever happening again.
The lesson out of this, though, is to engage with them in, as I said, proper committee engagement before, during and after.
The mine's operators will give evidence later this week. Christy Mayer, 7 News.